couple of things that are about to happen. First of all, as soon as we went to break, we received another $50 donation. So, so I've got my wife standing by with a whipped cream pie that is about to be shoved directly into my face. So thank you, Sharon and Craig.
Oh, that one was melty.
Yeah, it was. For your lovely donation.
Thank you, Sharon and Craig. We love you.
Yep. Yep. But more importantly than that, I'm going to also introduce my guest that I have right now. So joining me is Dr. Christopher Lunsford. He's a pediatric rehabilitation medicine physician with Duke Children's Hospital. His practice focuses on the unique needs of children rehabilitation, such as muscle tone treatments, therapy coordination, and specialized equipment such as wheelchairs, and focuses on the needs of those for children compared to that of adults. So we're going to discuss some of his new research that uses technology to make rehabilitation more fun and engaging. Christopher, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Am I coming through?
Yep, you're coming through just fine.
Awesome. Watching you get pied was pretty awesome. I was wondering because there's a delay on my video. I was like, oh, I gotta make sure I'm coming through.
Oh yeah, you're coming through just fine. Sweet.
Awesome. You gotta take some time. Get composed. Get all. I see you're getting all cleaned up now.
Oh yeah. Well, it's difficult to play. Oh, so last year, so this year so far, that's the second pie. But my father-in-law donated 2 pies earlier, but he's not. He's actually in town because they're looking at a condo.
Oh, cool.
So he told me he's going to be around here around 4 o'clock or so, and he's asked to pie me personally. So
Nice.
I've got 2 more pies in the works. But last year, so it's a $50 donation, and you get to pie anybody who's in the house, basically.
Oh, gotcha.
And last year we raised $650 from those. So we're already up to 200, and we've only been live for 6 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're at 936 for the whole day, right?
Yep, we've raised $936 for the whole day so far. So we are on a pretty good pace, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, I'm excited to play some Reach and to talk a little bit about what I do, and we can kind of go wherever you want to go, man.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. I'm going to try and fire up. I know we were having some issues earlier. I'm just going to try and see if we can start a firefight. Still throwing the same issue.
Real quick, try making me the party leader, and let me see if I could start it on my side.
There you go.
Let's see. So we can do okay, I believe I can do, they have a firefight like mode called Spartan Ops from Halo 4. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, we could do that. I think it was like kind of like like an extended campaign thing, wasn't it?
Maybe. Let's see what it feels like. Because you're right, yeah, it's still like based in the campaign. But unless you have something else you want to do,
we'll fire off with that.
It's weird. Yeah, it's coming up under firefight, but then once I click it, it does say campaign. I got more information when I was clicking through about the Reach and the ODST firefight. It looks like it's just because it was the DLC. But
okay.
The DLC, I think it was. Oh, yeah, it is included with Game Pass. So I just didn't download it when I downloaded. So
okay. Well, it threw me.
At least we know how to do it for later, maybe in the second hour or something.
Yeah. Okay. So it threw
cool.
me back to Spartan Ops to party leader. You want me to go ahead and just start with departure?
Yeah, but give me one quick second
Yeah, no worries.
because I would downloading it, and it says you are the party leader now.
Yes.
I think it's because I'm not in your party. Re-invite me back if you can.
Invite. Did you get that?
Yeah, well, it did, but then it didn't accept it. There it is. All
There
right.
we go. All right, departure, and I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just click right into the first one here. We should put it on normal so that way we can just chat. I'm gonna hit start. It currently does not support crossplay. All right, we're backing up. We're going into a campaign.
Ah.
All right, so let's.
Well, I did just download ODST. Try the firefight one more time.
Oh. Lost platoon.
Just in
Fire.
case.
Hey, we got firefight.
Aha.
Oh wait. Okay. The game the place that it was on was from an Extra Life firefight that was set up by a friend a couple of years ago when the Master Chief Collection first came to PC. I think it's pretty straightforward rules, but we might just have more power weapons than normal. But I'm down for it.
Yeah, it works for me.
Sweet. Well, now that we got that all sorted and we're good to go, who's messaging me on Facebook? Stop that. Yeah, so I sent you a couple questions beforehand just so that we could have an idea of what we want to discuss. But while we're hanging out and chilling, really the first question, what led you down the career in medicine and healthcare that you have now?
Yeah, so I think it's everyone who ever considers being a healthcare professional, it's always that mix of wanting to blend together science and the personal side of scientific and biologic systems, but you like people. Like you wouldn't do healthcare if you didn't.
Right.
And so, for me at least, it wasn't clear early on that what I would do. You know, I kind of was going through and pre-med, I just kept the option open. I was actually a philosophy major in college and was considering even doing like law school up until my final semester. Or my next to final, like the fall of my final year. And ultimately, just the more and more I thought about it, the more and more even law school was not people-centered enough for me. So that's why I finally took the plunge to go into medicine. But even when I went into medicine, kind of thinking about it, I didn't know a lot about what rehab medicine is. And I kind of got lucky because rehab medicine's not a required rotation in med school. So you have to sort of hear about it to know whether or not it would be a good fit for you. Good shot.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's kind of like when we were talking before, I think a lot of people get interested in healthcare professions, but then don't even, everyone kind of thinks, oh, there's always pre-med, but then you forget there's so many other healthcare professional tracks out there. And in the rehab field, a big part of what we really do is work to optimize interdisciplinary care because the conditions that I care for are complex and no one person really has all the answers.
Right.
So you work with your occupational therapist. I'm gonna pop out so I don't die here.
Yep, go for it.
But yeah, I think I'll stop talking on that for now. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned that, you and I talked about it before, and I mentioned that when I was in high school, I thought about pursuing a medical career myself. I ended up realizing pretty soon that it wasn't going to be something that I would be happy doing for the rest of my life. Switched to computer science and a few others, but it's nice. Like same like you. I still have that feeling where being able to help people and having something that you do that's personable is important. That's why I love the creative side things and like especially things like Extra Life, because it's a way for me to still help out in a field that I do care about, even if I'm not directly involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You never know your impact and your reach, kind of thing.
Right. So you ended up changing your majors around until you finally found rehabilitation medicine, and then what made you decide from there to make the focus on pediatrics?
It was actually circular. So I would say I went in after college and going into med school. I was leaning towards pediatrics early. And then after doing my pediatric rotation, I switched from pediatrics to rehab medicine specifically. And I did rehab medicine for my main specialty. So that's why I do know how to care for adults as well as children. Then I went back to rehab medicine's fellowship for pediatrics. But that circular, like, kind of going around is really just a function of it's a long path, and if you don't know what you don't know until you sort of experience it.
Right.
But each time I was sort of making the best decision for me at the time. So with switching away from general pediatrics, the reason for that was because general pediatrics just didn't fit my style of like problem solving and how I think about caring for people. I don't blame anyone that loves general pediatrics, but for me I kind of liked having more challenge with the clinical cases.
Right.
And so with general pediatrics, there's a lot of reassuring people that things are developing and going the way they should. And what I always talk about, like well baby checks, like if you've ever heard of how many times you gotta take your baby to the pediatrician, and then when during the cold and flu season, pediatricians just are always kind of checking out kids with the sniffles.
Right.
Then, so once I realized that was not kind of the I wanted, I went to rehab medicine because of problem solving that goes into rehab medicine, and kind of making a rehab plan is sort of so unique, and the art of medicine versus the science of medicine comes out because every individual who might need a rehab doctor probably needs a unique plan. So even if you take like the common things that you might think of needing rehabilitation in a comprehensive way. So again, we're talking about someone who might have a spinal cord injury or a traumatic brain injury, not like a knee replacement. A knee replacement needs rehab. That's very important.
Right.
But it's not the same type of comprehensive rehab. But if someone had a severe brain injury, that's an ongoing process. That's many years, if not sort of lifetime, sort of managing and making sure that we're keeping a person's day-to-day involvement of how they are still trying to always be recovering even years later that could be involved. And so that to me was the real pull, is that I really like the impact of maximizing function of life, which is what rehab doctors do. We don't do it alone. Early on, I would the difference between rehab medicine and then physical therapy. And it's in some ways two sides of one coin, which is, if you think of rehabilitation as a big picture process, then you need a rehab therapist to help you with like your physical therapy or your occupational therapy or speech language. And then you need and depending on the situation, you might need a rehab doctor to help you with the big picture, the 50,000-foot view of some of that.
Right.
So, like, kind of like almost like a orchestra where you have the brass and percussion and woodwind, and then you also have a conductor.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I think I didn't circle back to pediatrics was, you know, just almost lucky because it's a long road and I was starting my family and I finished my rehab residency and then the fellowship was another 2 years. It was like forever school, you know.
Yeah.
And my wife was supportive of it, and so I was able to circle back around to doing those last 2 years of pediatric training.
Nice. Well, it's great that you ended up where you did, because now you and I get to have this conversation.
And I gotta say, so far, you're right. I feel like my guns are overpowered. What are you feeling? Like,
I've also noticed. Well, it does seem like there is endless ammo, but you know what? It's good for just like mindless for a bit.
No, you're right. These brutes, I just remember, like, if this was the campaign, some of these brutes are absolute bullet sponges, and I'm only like having to hit them about 4 times. Like, feels good.
Yeah, look, I'm having a little bit of your audio there at the end started chopping up a little bit. I'm not sure if that's.
Okay.
I don't think that's my side, but I can double check.
It probably is my side. So what I'm gonna do is cut down on my bandwidth a little bit, because part of it is because I have a 5 and 9-year-old in the house, and they may have started up streaming something of their own, and
right.
so I'm gonna minimize whatever I can here.
Okay.
If it continues, let me know.
Yeah.
And I might go see who's streaming what in the house and get them on cellular if I can.
Sounds good.
And off of Wi-Fi.
But it's all coming through fine right now. So hopefully it keeps that way. But yeah, I have my list of questions over here. So obviously,
before the next question, I have a question about the firefight.
Okay.
So is this firefight mode endless, or is this one of the ones that after a certain number of waves we might change? I'm just curious.
This one might be endless. I am curious because I've definitely lost my shield, but it doesn't look like I've taken any health damage. I don't know if you've taken health damage.
Yeah, I can't tell. I also can't figure out how to reload because what my old settings has it. I have no idea why. Oh, there's that button. Alright. I'm gonna take a second to remap some controls.
Yeah, go for it. I will protect you.
And then, cause we're gonna be at this. I've been sitting here trying to figure out why my left trigger doesn't do aim down sights, or ADS.
Yep.
And I figured it out. It's because it's completely mapped for something else. So.
No worries. Let you get that figured out. I'm just gonna keep an eye out here.
Why would you grenade?
Swapping mags. I stock up.
Yeah.
An endless fuel rod sounds like fun.
Nice.
Yes. Oh, there's a hammer guy that got by me and I think just got you.
Hey, you know, it is what it is.
That's okay. We got 23 lives according to the top of this.
Okay, nice.
So at least we do know you can die.
I know. Give a little bit of intensity to it.
Yep.
Okay. Well.
Tough luck and catch on.
Okay.
Start.
Okay. Now Oh, did we restart it?
No, you died,
both
and
died?
you died, and then I came back here just to guard the doorway that you were in.
Give me a second. I messed with some of my audio here.
Yeah, no
You
worries.
still coming through, David?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if you can hear me anymore. I could hear you a second ago.
Ah, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I somehow muted myself too.
Oh, well,
Okay.
all good now.
Get back. Okay, cool. All right. I spawned with the band hammer. Nice.
Yeah, I think it's
Are
just.
you able to? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you able to sprint?
No. Sprint was added first in Halo 4, so.
Okay.
Or no, I guess it was in. I guess it wasn't Reach, but.
Yeah, it's always funny when you're like used to it, and I keep pressing it and thinking, why is it not working?
See, I'm old school when it comes to Halo, and I'm like, I don't want a sprint button.
Oh yeah.
I'm just so much more comfortable just with this feeling. But
Yeah.
you know, you get comfortable with what you like, what you had at a certain point.
And that's for sure.
Um.
Although, like I said, we had talked about before, I haven't played anything other than Halo Infinite in years, so there's a great amount of nostalgia and getting back into some of these.
Oh yeah.
So I'm all for switching out of this and going to a different mode or map or whatever you want to do before maybe the next question or something.
Yeah. I mean, we'll finish up. Maybe just this first full wave. Like so, typically
cool.
typically the firefights are 3 rounds with 5 waves each.
Okay.
And then we'll say that covers it.
Works for me.
Sweet. Yeah, the firefight games have a tendency to go a little long, depending on what you're doing. Like I know that there's my friends and I were trying to beat the challenge when Master Chief Collection first came out, which was to do legendary full firefight, which was 3 rounds of firefight, and then 5 waves each.
Oh really?
Or sorry, it was 3 full rounds of 3 waves with 5 groups of enemies each. Basically, it accounted to it was a lot. But by the end of it, all skulls are turned on by the end of it. So you have famine, you have no HUD, all the stuff. But there was an achievement for that in this game, and
nice.
it took us a couple tries and really planning in advance to finally get it.
Did you just kill the hunter with something?
I think I did. I think I just shot it with a fuel rod cannon.
Man, 1-shot hunter.
I know.
Yeah,
I did just put it on normal so that way we didn't have to think too much.
Mm-hmm.
No,
it's like I said, it's that remembering, oh man, it's a hunter. It's gonna take 10 minutes to kill this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, when all skulls are on, that for sure. I think a lot of attention. I guess that was over an hour for a firefight.
Oh yeah, it was like a 2-hour firefight to get everything through everything.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
it's a while. But while we finish up this one, I did want to follow up on the you chose rehabilitation medicine and then ended up in pediatrics based on. Or so you liked the idea of pediatric medication and then ended up in rehabilitation and then decided to go with the focus into pediatrics from there.
Yep, I circled back around to it.
Yep. And then, so one of the questions I had, children and adults require different approaches to the rehabilitation plans. Can you elaborate on what some of those differences are and why they're important?
So for me, I think the big one is that you think about childhood growth and development and something even as simple as what we call ADLs, activities of daily living. So and you're an infant that goes to a toddler, to a young kid, to then a teenager, and then to an adult. There's so much change going on in everyone's growth from childhood to adulthood. And the interplay of all of our different gross motor skills and fine motor skills and decision making and everything is different for everyone. But then when you overlay a kind of a complex disability or a motor disability, that can present challenges, and it can sometimes prevent some people from really thriving if they don't have a team to sort of like help them. Because you think about terms like accessibility and accommodations, and we've come a long way with those sort of things, but not everyone gets everything that they need sometimes. And in childhood, I think that that's why I love it so much, is that kids are changing so much, and your rehab plan that was working for the 4-year-old might not be what the 6-year-old and then the 8-year-old needs, and you have to really adapt and grow with the child. So for me, that's the fun part.
Gotcha.
And it's really rewarding to then see a kid that you first met before puberty or something, then they start like thinking about what they want to do when they grow up. I'm shooting you, never mind.
Yeah.
And I had done, I've been doing this long enough now where I've had kids that started off as, a 10-year-old who lets mom and dad make all the decisions for them, and now they're in college. And it's really awesome to see that.
Gotcha. So for those long-term patients, is it like how frequent are you like working with those kids throughout their rehabilitation? Is it just like what's the standard routine for that? I'm genuinely curious.
It definitely varies, but if you take a condition like cerebral palsy, which is, as of today, we don't have a cure for cerebral palsy. So it is a lifelong condition, but one that is very easy to manage depending on how complicated it might be. But for a lot of times, I might see a kid that has mild cerebral palsy once or twice a year from age 2 to 12. And then if things are going well, maybe even once a year from there. There are always times where it's like, oh, things are going so well, you just call me when you need me. And so I might not hear from them for 2 or 3 years or something, but then they hit like a really big growth spurt, or then there's some new changes in how they're walking, or they're having like some back pain that's related to their condition, not just like any old back pain, because they could always go to their primary doctor if it was that. But
Right.
for that might kind of help. It's rare that I would see someone with a complex condition one time and be done.
Right.
I get to keep my patients pretty well unless they're moving away, and that's another thing that I really like about it. That not nothing against ER, but for me, getting to have that longitudinal relationship with patients is so rewarding.
Right. Because that's also beneficial for them too, because since you've been working with them for a long time, there's a lot of pre-existing knowledge that's going on there that makes it easier to understand like what their exact needs are.
Yeah, we know where they've been and what worked for them, and maybe some things not to try again, or that sort of stuff. And I've been at since 2019, and even at the University of Virginia before then, and I still have some of my family that are up that way, not that far, and they may not come to see me, but they still let's keep me updated or send me a holiday card, and it's still so cool just to see again the kids grow and develop and taking on new challenges in life and all that good stuff.
Nice. Very nice. I'm gonna get this guy. Oh, that didn't work.
I just got absolutely flanked by 4 grenade grunts, and at least 3 of them pinged me, so that was That was pretty impressive grunt work.
Oh, got the cannon brute down. Let me see here. I think we're just about to start the final set of waves here.
Oh, cool.
Maybe.
I'm gonna get this
If I can,
band hammered.
if I can spot.
I'm really glad my screen is not being shown all the time for how bad I am.
There we go. Get him. There you go.
Nice. Live is added.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it seems like we would die eventually. So it's gonna turn. It's gonna turn on the grenade ones again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, black guy.
Tough luck. Yeah.
Oh, so now you've got to melee enemies. Otherwise, your shields don't recharge.
Okay. I'm curious, when you know Halo well enough to know when stuff was introduced. Is that just from the type of memory you have, or did you specifically memorize those for a reason?
Oh, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the Halo games.
Yeah.
Like I played a lot of Halo 1 when I was in middle school. Even though 2 and 3 were out, I didn't own an Xbox, but I did have like a port of Halo 1 on PC. And I didn't get a chance to really ever play Halo 2 until the Master Chief Collection, actually, because I never owned an original Xbox.
Ooh. Okay.
But
I just completely blew up by being man. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
I'm listening.
But then a lot of Halo 3, a lot of Reach, and then it kind of petered off a little bit with 4 and 5. I think really just because I do like Bungie as a developer, and there definitely was like a tonal shift with Halo in the later ones.
Yeah, for sure.
But I always had a really fond appreciation for these games, and I do just remember things like for people who like play a lot of Halo. Like one of my roommates in college was a bigger Halo fan than I was, and
for sure.
you know, he was very vocal about sprinting and things like that in some of the later Halo games, because we got it's kind of like one of those things where you get into a comfort zone with, right?
Yeah,
You're used to Halo is. It's a shooter that relies a lot on positioning, because you don't have a huge amount of movement, but there's still it's still got rewarding factors. And then especially with the new one where they've got the ledge grappling and things like that were added. It turns more into a movement based shooter than it does just a straight up shooter, which is a whole nother level. Do you ever play any of the what we used to call Twitch shooters back, like Quake and Unreal Tournament and all those?
Yeah, I mean, I was in some ways what I started on Unreal, before internet was in everyone's houses. Back when I was in high school, I went to a boarding school for my last 2 years, and we had to do our email in the computer lab, but in the dorm we would have Quake on LAN with a cord connecting 4 of our PCs to play. So yeah, I remember those days fondly, and kind of blew my mind the difference of when I remember first playing on 4 different computers with 4 different people on 4 different computers, and that was fun. But then the first time I started playing online, it was, for me, I mean, such a culture shift.
Oh yeah.
I mean, am I really playing someone that could be a halfway across the world? And so, yeah, it's been a big difference in not that many years.
Yeah. So a lot of people like to equate a lot of Halo's movements, even though you don't have as much there's not as much sliding, and there's no Quake style grapple hook or anything like that. But the movement of it is there's no real sprinting a lot of the time. It's just very much your character's just moving, and you got to keep the constant movement pace so that you're playing around. The things like grappling and all the additive movement things in some of the later ones really changes up that dynamic. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but it's just it makes it for a different game.
Yeah, and you know, there's that feeling of regression to the mean sometimes, where games start blending together because they all want to copy each other, when, like you're saying, just because one game is doing sprint or doing some other sort of movement thing, it doesn't mean all of them should be doing that.
Oh yeah,
And
I remember when Halo Infinite was about to come out, and people were terrified that they were going to add a battle royale mode to Halo, because it was the thing. It was the thing that every other big shooter was doing.
Exactly.
And it gets to a point where battle royales are fun, but it seems like the I know, but it seems like the genre's at least died down a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit, but something like Gears of War, they stayed pretty true to who they are.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of game companies copied Firefight when Halo introduced Firefight. Gears of War had a Firefight mode after ODST came out.
Who had it first, Halo or Gears of War?
I thought it was. I was pretty sure it was ODST was the first one that introduced Firefight, but I could be wrong. I know that Gears of Wars happened relatively closely afterwards, at least.
Yeah.
They were probably right around the same time, but I know that Firefight at the time was kind of like a revolutionary game mode.
Yeah, no, exactly. I remember that as well. But I think of Gears of War as doing it better than ODST, but I also did not play a ton of ODST. I think I went Halo 1, 2, big break, and then back into it for Halo Reach when I got back into it. Yeah.
Oh man, missing out on Halo 3.
No, I played it, but I just didn't
get really into it. Yeah.
Like the number of hours,
Yeah.
I would say, because again, that was pre, even like multiplayer for Halo 3 for me was, I just hadn't started getting into multiplayer yet, but then when Reach came out, I went ahead and that was also when I was first making some money, so I bought, my own new Xbox and had good internet connection, and then I was like, all right, let's try this, and played some mode. I remember just dying so much, and then by the end of a couple of months, I was playing SWAT every night on Halo Reach.
Yep. My brother was huge on SWAT, and I played a lot of SWAT with him.
Yeah.
I was always kind of more of a fan of the traditional Slayer style, just because, again, I thought it was unique for Halo, but SWAT definitely. Lot of my time at Halo Reach.
I would say the only reason I was doing SWAT was just the challenge, I think, of it. I don't think I was that good at it, but nowadays I guess you would call that really sweaty matches,
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of people think about when they think about SWAT is it's the sweaty players who are only trying to get headshots. I'm like, actually, all SWAT taught me how to do was to dome people when I was playing any other game mode.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm definitely dying more often now.
Oh yeah, well, tough, and then
we
need to get our shields up, and then got to be able to melee to do that. So it's a whole ordeal.
I'm not finding. Every time I try to melee, it's pretty much when I'm dying. I'm gonna try to get into this.
I'm gonna try and get this guy here. Oh, I threw a grenade by accident.
Let's see.
Come back here, buddy. There we go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Got him.
Yeah, so they do the skulls and waves for the actual main firefight, and it's always the same first few. Tough luck, catch, and whatever this last one was that requires the meleeing. And then what it does is that after, if we were to continue, it would disable all the tough luck, catch, and other one, and then turn on one of those. So if you look on the left-hand side, you see those skulls listed.
Yeah.
it'll turn on one of those skulls on the bottom until eventually we get everything turned on. And it just gets progressively harder and harder.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll call that good for this firefight run. Unless we want to do we'll do the grunt party real quick. Have that happen, and then
yeah, let's do it. I would say the difficulty caught up quickly, so I'm good to stay here if you want, or to go and do something else. Like you said,
well, do you want to keep doing this one just because the difficulty ramped up?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, so we got 60 seconds to kill as many grunts as possible, and I think it's like headshots only, and bullets don't work, and we have to melee and a whole bunch of other things, because everything's turned on now.
And I'm about to get absolutely wrecked by this.
Oh, thank you. You said it right there. Oh, gosh. There's so many grenades.
Yeah, there are.
Oh, I'm dead. I'm so dead.
Yeah. You got a lot of them before you. I was able to throw a number of grenades into the mix there. Gotta get that gun down.
Oh wait, I should probably change my camera. Can I change my camera? There we go. I'm on you. Alright, your gameplay is highlighted right now.
Oh no. That's so bad. Well, I'm just looking to see if there was another group coming behind us, but we only have 3 more seconds. I don't see any more. Oh, there's one more. If I can get him. Oh, you got him.
Well, no, they all just die after that point. So now we get 1 skull on total.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give us I forget which hard skull this gives us.
I'm gonna go to the center and look for some snipes.
Sure.
Since my current loadout is pretty.
What is mine? I've got a shotgun and an SMG. All right, cool. I will be down here then.
Sure, I'll try to give you cover. What side of it?
Oh, I'm on a chopper right now, so I'm all over the bottom.
Oh, okay, got it. I see it now.
Yep. While this next round is taking a minute to load up, I'm going to fire off another one of these questions I sent your way. So, so what's something that you've seen in your practice that a parent may not be aware of when it comes to children needing rehabilitation?
So I feel like for me, the interesting conundrum that parents aren't aware of is that medicine is actually not built well to care for people with long-term disability. And so that seems almost like paradoxical sometimes for people to hear about, but it really is something that we work on really quickly with families, because they get this feeling of like, well, no one's really helping me with the things that are important to me. And that's because medicine has become so hyper segmented into all the different doctors that are out there kind of focusing on one thing, and we're losing that whole person's care. And when we do that, if you have a condition that does affect a lot of different organ systems, so where your orthopedic doctor and your neurologist and your rehab doctor and your GI doctor might all need to be involved, that's a lot for a parent to sometimes keep track of, especially for their kids to say, wait, why do we need all these different people? And so I try to kind of help families quickly know that if they feel like it, if they know to expect that, then sometimes it makes a lot more sense when we're working together and why we're educating or sort of empowering certain parts of it, because I want them to feel like, okay, well, the system may not be perfect, but here's the best way that we can work with the system to get what we need for our family and for our child.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we spend a lot of time on that early on if we need it.
Gotcha. Do you mostly see long-term patients for what for your practice, or?
Yeah, so for what I do, it would be, like I say, pretty rare if I saw someone and um, I would say, let me kind of put, unless they move away, I keep 19 out of every 20 patients.
Okay.
So that means that it sometimes can be hard to find a spot in my clinic because I'm waiting on patients to move away or to kind of age out of my service. But that's also one reason why I came to Duke to kind of grow, is that we actually, as a rehab, I was the first pediatric rehab doctor Duke's ever hired, and we already have our now someone there that's going to start seeing some of my patients as they do age out of my service between 18 to 21. So.
But that way they still
That's,
remain in the Duke sphere,
well,
have some of your
yeah,
resources
well,
available
yeah.
too.
Exactly. They said that they feel like they're getting the same support that I brought to their childhood if they need it through adulthood. And they may not need it as intensely because, you know, we already talked about how different adult versus childhood care is. But you know, if I was seeing someone at once or twice a year, they still probably need a rehab doctor to check in on them every 2 years because their condition again might be lifelong. So, and what would they do? Sometimes it's like reordering the braces that would help them with their walking, or like their specialized wheelchairs that still need to have a doctor signing off on them and reviewing them. And then also my hope is like more rehabilitation technologies and research that might offer like video game therapies and other things that might change how we think about rehab over a person's life. So
Yeah, I want to double check my list here to make sure I'm not going to be
yeah,
reaching
and
going
yeah,
over anything again.
Yeah, and don't think it's out of order either.
Oh, no. Yeah, I wanted to, because I know you and I talked about some of your ongoing research ahead of time. I didn't know. I didn't know if you could share any information about some of the stuff that you are working on publicly. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. That give you a chance to kind of talk about how you're combining some of your passions with your practice.
Yeah, so I think that's probably, for me at least, one of the things that I get excited about is how technology changes rehabilitation, and whether or not that's digital technology or even robotics. There are a lot of things that I think will become what was almost science fiction will become doable for day-to-day rehabilitation. And one of them is that video gaming, to me, has always been an untapped resource for motivating how we want to learn and play and kind of mix those two. And for kids, development is play.
Right.
So to motivate a kid to play a video game is a lot easier than to motivate them to maybe go to the third therapy session this week. But what if you start blending the two, where their video game sessions and their therapy sessions are aligned in the goals that they're both working on? And so one of the research studies that we have is, you remember the Kinect system for Xbox, which I don't know why it didn't keep kind of catching on, but there's some limitations to the technology, but it's camera tracking where you can use your body as the controller.
Right.
And so we have a research study that uses that for kids that have what's called hemiplegia to work on where one side of their body, motor control and coordination may not be quite as to the same level as their other more dominant side. And so the game is focused where let's say their right hand is what they want to work on, where their right arm and hand function is the controller. And even if they use their other side, the camera tracking technology wouldn't give them credit necessarily for reaching to feed the dragon that's on the screen, like How to Train Your Dragon style, or to pretend like they are using their arm to use a game in space to tower defense themselves from the oncoming wave. They only get credit with the side that they need to be working on. And that side, there's research that shows that a therapist can spend an hour working with a child and get something like an average of 5 reaches every minute max. And then with playing a video game, they might get 10 reaches on average a minute.
Okay.
And that's blowing the dosage of therapy out of the water then, that what we get. And it would sort of kind of go together, that the therapist could then say, oh, so instead of giving them a boring set of exercises to do in between therapy sessions, they would prescribe a new part of the game, and then next time they check in with them, they've progressed in the difficulty level in that game and made all kinds of new progress, hopefully. So that's what we're hoping to get more and more data on, and that's what this research is trying to find ways to capture. We already know it's motivating, but now we need to also see if it has a similar effect to therapy itself and helping kind of bridge the gap maybe between therapy sessions.
Yeah. Like it's not the new answer. It's like in addition with kind of thing.
It would have to be in addition with. Again, I think mainly because how are you going to know which sub games are the best ones to play?
Oh yeah.
What's the right amount of challenge? So yeah, that. But I kind of get back to that old. I don't know if you've ever done therapy for like foot ankle injury, and they give you a sheet and say do this 5 times, 5 minutes a day, and all of us may not do exactly what they tell us.
Yeah, I remember when my grandmother had her hip replacement. She had to do a number of exercises every few hours just to, keep like the movement going and making sure that there wasn't like the joint didn't settle or anything like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, definitely see the added bonus. Like, I feel like you can't just say like, all right, well, it's not going to be the kind of solution where you go, okay, well, we've determined that playing these games for medicine is the way to go, and there's no need to consult with anybody on it. That's not what I was getting at. It was more about. Yeah.
Well, how they would work together, kind of thing. And
yeah, exactly.
I say that way because actually, like that worry, I guess if you could say, is one of the kinds of things where researchers are always trying to figure out what the best way to spend our research dollar is. And early on, I actually remember one of the grant reviewers saying, if you're trying to replace therapists, then you would want to use a different grant mechanism. And I was like shocked that they thought we would suggest that. So,
oh yeah, well, you can't really. You can't prescribe what to do if if there isn't somebody who understands it to be there for review. Even though we develop medicines that make cures.
Star Wars medbots or something like that.
Oh yeah,
but medical droids.
Yeah. Well, I have as a guy who works in the computer science field, I have minimal hopes a lot of the times when it comes to complex AIs. So
yeah, it seems like we would be making progress with big data processing, but then it seems like AI can't keep up with some of that decision making in there. It's interesting to hear you say that it's not the best, most hope.
Well, I might be a bit of a pessimist when it comes to it. I just know what we've taught AI I'm a big fan of Dota, right? Dota 2. And there was a project going on for the last couple of years where they trained AIs to play the game. But the only way that the AIs can really do it is that they basically fed it data from a whole lot of pro games. The bots, they could feed it all the keystrokes and everything and all the movements. And the bots actually got to the point where they were able to compete against and beat like competitive teams, like actual professional teams. But you know, there's like.
But then the team could adapt and the bots couldn't.
Exactly. So what the team started doing was they said, okay, we just can't use any conventional strategies. You know, we've got to use something unique, and then it would take a while for the bots to like learn new things. And then there was also like the human aspect of being able to think a lot more on the fly was definitely noticeable, and it wasn't like just always a 100% complete wash. When you think about that with every small facet that happens within the human body, the chance of being able to cover all of that with AI, I think, is, you know, very, very implausible. I mean, we talk about, you know, like neural link and things like that. The capability of being able to tap into, understand, and dissect like every neural link within the brain is such a complex structure compared to that of most games, because the game itself had to be developed by a human, you know, in order to understand it, you know, like to that level. I feel like we would have needed to have a role in creating it.
I think you hit the nail on the head with what I believe. So someone on your stream, or you may know better, but like open versus closed systems, right? So AI playing chess, which is a fairly closed system.
Yeah.
You know, it seems infinite, but it's not technically infinite. How many different moves there may be, but human body systems are, as far as we can tell, an open system. So I think that's a good way of putting what you're seeing and thinking there too. What do you think about self-learning? Like when there is the bot that does try to learn from and adapt, is that a process that you see is a long way off, or not necessarily?
So the bots that were used, and I know that were used in this gameplay for Dota, they were powered by OpenAI, which was I believe is pretty much like advanced learning AI. You know, you could put it on a topic, and I think it's the same thing that's been used for like the AIs that will write stories and all that stuff.
Okay.
You know, they dissect.
Like the Seinfeld episode AI.
Yeah. They dissect a whole lot of information on a specific topic and then spit out a result. You know, I mean, you could have an AI go through, read a bunch of different medical reports, but to be able to have that AI sit down, understand every small nuance of your unique situation, that I think a certain level of like empathy and you know, like non-verbal, non-physical cues, you know, that you get from in-person interactions. I don't think that that's really capable for artificial intelligence at the current moment.
Okay.
You know, that's where I'm at. but I could be entirely wrong. You know, who knows? Maybe I'm just like I science fiction's cool. I don't believe a lot of it, and I you know, I write. I'm a software engineer. You know, I write API integrations for like data orchestration, but it only gathers the data that I tell it to, and it does not currently does not do any interpretation on it. It is simply just raw data. Somebody else handles the orchestration, but you know, it's it's a whole world.
Yeah, it's also fascinating to me because of I don't know if you know about like medical documentation and how hard it is to sometimes understand at a retrospective level, like, are certain things helpful or not, because of how different everyone documents. Even in now the electronic versus written, we still are all documenting non-discrete elements, and we have no processing system strong enough to pull out from all of that different documentation kind of like the data that will tell us who's doing it right, you know. And it's my hope is that someday we get some of that with, like you said, maybe not even having to process it, but at least compiling it better, so that then we can learn a little bit from what we're doing as we do it. I'm fascinated with electronic medical records and data kind of processing of those, and maybe not AI is maybe not the best word, but it's certainly, for me at least, in the rehab world, I think we could do so much more if we had a way to pull out some of the data at a big level.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely always information that you can get from sourcing data. Again, as a reference for the field I work in, so I work for a company that basically is a loan management application, right? So so for banks and credit unions, in order to better track their loans and all that kind of stuff. But what we can do with that is that when it's all on one platform, and it's not these paper loan documents, that they're having to track and scan and keep in. When it's on our platform, we can create spreadsheets. We can give breakdowns of like their average returns. We can do calculations on previous borrowers and determine how their lending habits are. Right.
Yeah.
So the company that I work for is actually publicly traded now. We're partnered with Wells Fargo and like a whole bunch of other very large banks, because the information that it provides to like the banking sector is huge.
They need to get into medicine then.
Well, that's the thing is like the what you can get from medical records, if you're able to digitize that information and get unique data from it, or helpful data in terms of determining care practices or approaches, I think is pretty much like parallel to that kind of work.
Yeah. You kind of touched on it the way I was thinking of it, the same way they do like life insurance, risk gratifications or whatever.
Yeah.
We're missing some of that with kind of complex disability, trying to help predict and not doing like squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like that's what I see all the time, is that we're not forever being proactive. We're only doing squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
And it's hard that way, for sure.
Yeah. It's just like if there's a way to save, like you were talking earlier about how, you've got, you keep about 19 out of every 20 patients, so that your clinic fills up pretty quickly. If you could save a lot of the administration time having to review documents or review medical records, and that could be digitized and processed, that would be a way for you to also be able to take on more patients, theoretically.
Yeah. No, you're right. Despite, like I said earlier, about there being an art to what I like doing, and everyone gets a unique plan, there are still trends, and the trends are not optimized. Like, there's things all the time where we are just not catching things as early as we could. I don't remember if I mentioned it to you, but cerebral palsy, which is one of the main conditions I treat, is the most common physical disability of childhood, affecting about 3 out of every 1,000 people, which might not sound like a lot, but over the whole population of the U.S., even, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it scales.
And yet, when someone is in a rural community, and they may, to me, have sort of mild cerebral palsy, for their community, that might be the first time they've ever had a kid in that school that has that disability. And so they sort of get treated like, oh, well, we don't know what to do with you, how to help. And I'm hoping that data will help us make those things a little bit less feeling like, even if you're in a rural area where it's like, they feel like they have to remake the wheel starting from scratch and figuring out how to help. But they don't, we figured out a lot of things that will help.
Right. Ooh, there's a lot of brutes over here. Oh!
Yeah. I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, you're speaking my language a lot with data, though, because that's literally my entire my entire professional work, basically.
Well, I think there is also something about having a love of video games and a respect for what computer systems and how human lives and digital lives, how the interplay between them. Like having a healthy respect for that is something that those of us who also love video games, I think, just naturally have. It's in our DNA of kind of saying, hey, you know, the digital aspects of how it affects human social interaction, human health. We're just scratching the surface of all these things, and that to me is exciting. And I know it's exciting to you because of what your life choices and how your you know, what your career is. So
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I'm gonna circle back around to some of the questions that we had on here. Unless you had something that you wanted to throw out there before I do that. I don't want to just pivot the conversation on you.
no, not really. I feel like the answer I gave you for the research that I do was better when we talked earlier a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but
in
I mean,
in the end, it's like, it's sometimes I'm also like maybe playing the game harder than I should. So not quite as loquacious as I normally could be.
Oh, it's totally fine. Plus, I mean, you were able to show like some video assets and all that on ours. I wanted to make sure that we were talking about, because I know you mentioned you had some ongoing research that was like still kind of like in trial. So I didn't want to encroach on anything like that you might not be able to talk about.
I can talk about any of it. I think it's hard to explain it though without seeing it, which is what I can't do is show it. But
right.
I guess the only other thing I'll mention, since it was related. Dang, something like I got hit with napalm there.
Oh yeah, there's the incendiary grenades from the invisible brutes.
Oh yeah, that is.
I think this was the only Halo game that had the incendiaries.
And the invisible brutes are quite invisible, at least on my computer or my screen.
Yeah.
So right now, the two video game or gaming related studies that we have, one is recruiting that with the kids with hemiplegia. The other one's actually not just for kids, because on my research, while I only see kids in clinic, I don't do research only with kids. So
right.
We're doing a adult with stroke wearable VR game to specifically look at hand function. And this came about because when you think about like open source software versus hardware options that we have, we were really, I don't do the game development. I work with the outside engineering firm that want to do it, but they need a doc with access to patients to recruit and to also give that feedback on the places that we're going. And Oculus 2 came out, and the hand tracking on Oculus 2 at baseline blew us away. Like, what they built it for, they sort of like loaded it out with the hand tracking features built to grow on, and called it beta and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's actually super robust, and so robust that we moved up one of our like 3 to 5 year goals of hand tracking games. We were able to move that up and get funding for it, and now we're already funded.
Oh wow!
Because of that, yeah. So we're going to be recruiting for that study early next year. And as you can imagine, hand function, finger function, sometimes that takes the back seat to when we look at like, is this really affecting your major goals and quality of life, and when it shouldn't, because even if you can do a lot with one side, there's so much of our lives that is bimanual, and bimanual activities are it's almost like we felt like that was something that even for adults that we just didn't want. If you have a stroke, we don't want you to give up on using that other hand in your keyboard typing forever now, you know. Where the previous norm would have been like, well, you'll just never be able to keyboard type, and that's part of your disability you're gonna have to learn to live with.
Right.
And now maybe not. Maybe we can find some ways to really work on hand function in a motivating way that will change how we sort of prioritize those things over time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to go at these roots with an energy sword, and I'm doing nothing. I don't know if my stream is still.
I got it. There you go.
Nice.
Saved your life.
That was. Yes, you did.
Except I'm gonna die to this one with the fuel rod over here, apparently.
But yeah, that wrapped up the other video game related work that trying to gamify with the camera tracking technology that we have, gamatized therapy. And for kids, it's really obvious. For adults, it's a little bit more subtle. It's just, I don't know if you've looked at the elements of gamification and health gamification, where, trying to get people to check in on an app and unlock things if it will help them keep better track of their blood sugar. Like there are people that are working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a big benefit to gamifying things. Like my wife and I did it one time with like our household chores. She introduced me to an app where it was basically an RPG, but your quest was your chore list. And,
oh, yeah.
And as you did your weekly or daily chores every single day, you could check them off, and you would get points, and you would get like adventures gear and things like that. And then you had like a weekly raid that you would do at the end of every week, and based off the stuff that you had acquired throughout the week by completing your chores, increased your ability to perform in those. So
yeah,
there's stuff like there's clear information that there's reward receptors in our brains, and it's like really simple to get them to be like, all right, well you completed this task, you receive like this bonus. And I think that's a pretty understood thing at this point.
Well, and yet sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's almost like that's the next step, is to figuring out why is Farmville on Facebook so motivating for people to spend their time on, and then why are other things that are tied to what people would say their goals are, may not be as motivating. And so I think that's, to me, that's sort of the next frontier for what gamification can and can't do, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Not that I'm the one doing that research. I'm just paying attention to other people smarter than me doing that research. I think that's almost more in the psychology realm,
Yeah, definitely. Bonus round over. So
I don't think I did that good in that bonus round, but oh well.
Oh, it's fine. So you mentioned some of the most. You said that cerebral palsy is probably one of the most common conditions that you see within your practice. So you probably say that was probably one of the most common conditions that requires, or at least pediatric rehabilitation.
For sure, and there are others, but it also kind of depends on the region of the country that kids live in. But yeah, tell me for sure, was that your question of like other conditions or other aspects of a condition? What do you think?
Well, so the question that I had written down originally was just that what are some of the common conditions that may require rehabilitation for children? So obviously, cerebral palsy, number one. I can imagine things like fractures or like severe fractures or accidents like that. But what would you probably say? Like if a parent had what's a condition maybe that a parent if they had their kid have some kind of incident occur that they might not immediately realize that seeing a rehabilitation specialist might be necessary for, but is actually pretty common.
Yeah. So I think again for me, it's there's a ton of conditions where I could be helpful, but a therapist by themselves with no rehab doctor also being a part of it may be also all they need. So it's that sort of thing of when is that expanding the team helpful? It's a could be a case by case decision, because if someone has, let's say, if you're a teenage girl who's had no other issues, kind of your whole development, and then like at 12 you start having scoliosis. Well, that type of scoliosis is managed really well with seeing an ortho doctor maybe a couple times, and then maybe wearing a brace, and then maybe doing some therapy, some combination. But then when you're done growing, you may not need rehab anymore. And so you may never even meet a rehab doctor.
Right.
But then if you have, you're in a car wreck and you have a leg fracture, but then you also have a really severe concussion, which is technically a mild brain injury. Well, the leg fracture heals up super quick. And then a lot of times people never get more support for the mild brain injury, because it was like so obvious that you needed to work on that leg fracture.
Right.
But the mild brain injury is something that might affect and lead to a sort of a learning disability that needs some more support, or it might create some struggles with emotional regulation and make it more likely for a young teenager to go through some depression that needs to be treated. And someone focusing on sort of, oh, they were in a car wreck with their leg and that's healed now, so they're all good. That can be a case where, wait a second, don't forget to also look again at the whole person. What all did the car wreck do?
Right.
And so for me at least, it's not every day that would happen where I would hear about a case where, oh, wait a second, you struggling with a new learning disability, and 6 months ago you were in a car wreck and no one's asked you about that. Tell me again what happened in the car wreck, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's even just like if you take a look at it and think about it for a second, you know, that the experience of the car wreck might have left some kind of like traumatic response that has the person have reactions like when they get in a vehicle moving forward. But that could be just like the very obvious case. There could just be small things, you know. All throughout, just like the depending on how photographic their memory is of the event could cause occasional issues and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
And then, you know, I would say more often I'm treating conditions so that people are sort of quote unquote born with, or genetic, or that happened related to an injury when they were a baby. And so it's not usually subtle, for me at least, were things that people could benefit from seeing me for. And the big one for me is, as a functional medicine specialist, is the management of increased muscle tone. So like you've seen people who have maybe their arm after a stroke kind of seems like it's stiffer or stuck in a position. Mm-hmm. And that is what I do a lot, is managing that, because you can actually give medicines by mouth for muscle spasms for the whole body, and that's kind of like something someone very similar to what you might take if you have a temporary back injury and having muscle spasms, but in some conditions it's just not temporary. They always have spasms like that.
Right.
But then the other big one is, what if it's just one muscle at the elbow and one muscle at the wrist that are kind of overactive? Well, taking the medicine for the whole body is not necessarily the best way to go about addressing that focal or sort of like very specific area anatomically that's involved. And so we can do injectable medicines, which is called Botox therapy or botulinum toxin therapy, which, yes, it's the same thing you might have heard that some people do for wrinkles. It's the same medicine, but different doses in different places for different goals.
Right.
And so that's the other big area that when I was brought to Duke, it was something they really wanted me to build out for because of the training that I have. And as you can imagine, it's not fun for kids to get injections of a medicine that even if it does help them. So it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all. We have to figure out who's a good candidate for it and why are we going to do it and what are we looking for when we do it. Because that's an example of where the local, I might do it, but then the local therapy team and mom and dad have to be the ones to tell us, did it work? Did it have the goals that we were hoping to see?
Well, yeah, and especially like needed care for children. Like like for myself personally, like I'm never a fan of getting shots myself, you know. But,
oh yeah, no.
You know, so,
no,
but
I don't think anyone is. I always kind of joke, like I never became a doctor. We're a big part of what I do. But I ever thought like, oh, I want to give shots to kids as a major part of my career. And yet, because of the benefit that we see, it's sort of surprising how often it's like we do it a couple times. Kids even, I have kids that are, once they get past that age range of like 4 to 8, where it really, them can be very hard to help them see the benefit. I have 12-year-olds that will come to me and say, I hate this, but I know I need it, and I want you to change my dose to give it more here and less there. And so it's always a little bit nice to have the patient almost reassuring me, like, should we do this? Maybe we should put this one off. And then sometimes the patient speaks up, like, oh, no, we'll do it. I need the medicine. I hate the shot, but I need the impact of it.
Yeah, I'm do the same thing every year when it comes to like getting flu shots and all that. I'm like, I hate it. So one of the things that drives me a lot to want to do Extra Life is that I know I, as a kid, was I used to jokingly say a walking medical bill for my parents.
Oh no!
You know, like I'm nearsighted. I'm flat-footed. I have a heart murmur. Like I could go down.
Number of things.
I could go down and down my list. But when I was about 3.5, I contracted meningitis and had to have a spinal tap done, which is where I think my like intense like fear of pain from needles comes from. So.
Yeah. And that's like the worst age to force, you know, something like that where. You know, there's no way to explain to any kid in that age range why this is important. It doesn't matter how it is. I mean, some kids have to be sedated for that. It sounds like you were not.
I was not. I remember laying down on the table. I was probably 3.5, and then I was hospitalized for 3 days afterwards. But
oh man.
But well, to add to the medical bill, I was gonna say to add to the medical bill, I also had braces twice.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, gosh. And yeah, I think I talked about leg braces before with like kind of helping kids walk, but orthodont like the teeth braces, and those aren't all the time covered by insurance. So that that was Yep.
Oh, man. I felt so bad because I got my first set when I was in elementary school, and then finished up middle school. And by the time I was in high school, my dentist recommended that I get braces again. Mm-hmm. And they said that just something about my puberty had just caused my teeth to start to shift again. So the fact that they needed
molars
to be,
yeah.
But
I think a lot of times though people underestimate that like you had meningitis and you luckily made like a completely full recovery.
Yeah,
I do have some patients on my like service that had meningitis, and the meningitis or a severe seizure or something is why I see them like that. It created a scenario where it overly stressed part of the brain, causing some issues that are pretty much permanent, that we're kind of really working around that. But what I always come back to is that, like, full recovery or not full recovery, what we really work on is understanding that, you know, the road ahead and what we're working on does not need to be sort of looking at the issue or the disability as the enemy. We're looking at the negative impact on quality of life as what we're working against, but not the disability itself. And I think that is really helps, I think, with kids themselves growing into understanding that, yes, I'm different, but different's not bad. And that to me is, in some ways, every bit as important as the, you know, the medicine that they take by mouth. You know, is that understanding that all that we're working on, you can kind of minimize the impact without making the disability itself the enemy.
Right. Yeah, I think that's huge. Oh gosh, brute. There we go. Got it. Sweet.
Well, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, you look at your 11th year of doing this, and the 11 years that you've done it, knowing that the pandemic made that year, or maybe even 2 years in a row, a little different. What was sort of like the highlight of the 11 years you've been doing it, and in terms of maybe something funny that happened, or you know, unexpected donation? And then what was like the hardest, like maybe years, like, oh, maybe even we're not going to do it 1 year or something. But 11 years is a great record, a great streak. So tell me, man, a highs and a low.
So definitely, I'll always throw it back to 2019 as, so I just looked at my chat, and one of my old roommates from college just wrote onion biting.
No.
So in 2019, we convinced our local board game store here to bring the program to the store. So the store was open Saturday to Sunday, 24 hours. So they stayed open all Saturday night into Sunday. The event started at like 8 p.m. on the Saturday and went till 8 p.m. on the Sunday. Definitely made it one of the harder years because obviously, you know, we're up all day getting ready for it, and then we're up through the night, and then we're up the whole next day. So that one was really like we were up for like, you know, 36 hours as opposed to like just being up for 24.
That's nuts.
Yeah, but I brought all my equipment that I have. Like you saw us playing the tabletop setup and all that. You know, there's a whole bunch of cameras and wiring and everything going around here. I brought that all into the store. We had a space set up in the back where we could play games and everything like that, and everything was still live streamed. The store gamified the donations. So they everybody paid $25 to get into the event, but that your $25 was a donation. And they gave you like coins. Each coin was worth $5, so that you could go play a game with people and you could wager coins in the game. And at the end of it, they collected all the coins from everybody as part of the donation. And like whichever team of people had the most coins, like won an additional prize.
Nice.
But between that that was the first year we raised over $1,000 in one stream. So we raised about $1,200 ourselves, and the store raised about $1,900. So we ended up with a little over $3,000 raised for Duke Children's that year, between our efforts. And then, but the onion biting thing that my friend mentioned in chat. So we were playing. So typically starting at midnight, we play some kind of horror game. And we still have plans to do that this year. It's been a tradition for since like 2016 of Extra Life Stream. So this for like the last 6 years. And we were playing a game called Layers of Fear, which was a game about like some painter and like you know, a horror game. And somebody made a joke about like layers in it, and then we made like the Shrek reference where we're like, you know what has layers? Onions. And then I jokingly said, hey, you know what? If we hit the $1,000, I will bite an onion. And little did I, like, you know, we had already raised $800 by this point. So, you know, it immediately circled back around, and we hit it. So my wife went out, bought a yellow onion, and every one of us just took turns taking a big old chunk out of the onion. So much so that some of our friends who were watching at the time remotely, they went into their kitchens, found themselves an onion, sent pictures of themselves biting onions.
Nice.
So
Okay, so this year one up it with ghost pepper biting.
So okay,
And-
so in 2020, I ate a whole habanero pepper. So that was a thing that I did, and it
It's
took.
easy for me to say that because I would almost assuredly chicken out of it. I just, no way. I'm such a wimp with spice.
Well, and that's the thing. If somebody donates $100 this year, I did the first two. I think I have somebody else who's volunteered to do the next one. But we bought a flight of hot sauces. From
Yeah.
and they range from like a mango habanero all the way up to like just straight up Carolina Reaper scorpion pepper. And I've already done that twice today. After the second one, my stomach was hurting. I've thankfully sent somebody to go get some Tums, so we have some Tums for if we have to do it later. But I think 2 is enough for me this year. I don't want to actually hurt my body.
And more importantly, risk the stream. I mean, your body is one
there's
thing,
like 12 people in the house right now who are all gathered
That's what I'm
downstairs.
saying.
You know, they got it. You know, I told my wife the controls.
That's funny.
They'll take over. I will say that definitely COVID though. So when we took it out, I always like the first like 4 years I did it. I just streamed it from my bedroom in college and just played games and chatted with people online. And you know we were raising on average like $200 to $300 between like my parents would donate $100 and then a few small donations. So we started upping it and then getting to the point where we were no longer just doing it in my apartment with friends coming over, but that we were involving our local community was great. So to kind of take it all back inside when COVID happened, and that's kind of been the deal for the last couple years. I'm excited to try and talk to our local game stores again for a future year to bring it back out to the community. I was very lucky as well. The company I work for, they have actually been doing Extra Life for about 6 years. So they have a group of players dedicated there who play for Maynard Children's Hospital primarily.
Have you looked? It looks like they're close to their goal already. By the way.
Yeah. So we did.
Work.
Well, so we did our game day as the company back in September. So we had one of our office buildings open for 24 hours and had a whole bunch of games and activities planned. We did raffles. Some people did sponsorships, like local businesses were putting up things. I had like a 10-person laser tag party to like a local laser tag place that somebody donated. Somebody actually bought like first class domestic flights and put them up as a raffle item. So, so somebody out there got a free first class domestic flight. Who won that raffle? But we managed to raise $9,000 through all those efforts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really nice to be able to be a part of that and also work for a company that has a number of people that support a charity I've been doing since I was in high school.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
It's interesting. You don't really have a lot of the time. You go. Some people go like, oh, they'll see the T-shirts because I have like every Extra Life shirt from like 2015 forward, and they're like, what is Extra Life? And I'm like, well, it's a yearly charity where we play games and raise money. And people are like, how do you raise money by playing games? I'm like, well, I convinced you. I'm doing it right now. I'm gonna be live for 24 hours. Stop in, check it out. We've got all our donation tiers set up. As simple as $5, I'm rolling a D20 and doing some random thing. I've already added 5 minutes to the stream because of the dice. Because if I roll an 18, I think it was. Is the stream we add 5 minutes?
So 24 hours and 5 minutes now.
Yep. But But
and those donation incentives, kind of being creative with them, I had fun reading through them, and I did not get when I donated, I did not get I was trying to let you off the hook and not make you actually have to do the wax strip.
yeah, but you clicked on it.
it.
I mean, to be fair, one person donated $125, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, what do I... Like, that's not one of my donation tiers. And then I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm going to do a $100 tier, a $20 tier, and a $5 tier, all in one donation.
Nice.
Just to inspire people to give and see what happens. I mean, again, my father-in-law donated $200 already. He says it's 2 pies, a wax strip, the $20 Christina Irwin patent, or the Christina Irwin patent $20. Yeah, that's our friend Christina. She's watched the stream for so many years, but she's never actually gotten a chance to take part.
Cool.
But she's actually in town for the first time, so I think she's already downstairs, and she's taking part in the next activity we're doing.
Very cool.
Which is exciting.
Well, I'll enjoy poking my head into your evening activities. I probably won't make it to the horror gaming.
Oh yeah, that's the late night crowd. We get some people to tune in, but it's definitely an ask. That's why we do the majority of the fundraising. I probably would say between probably between 11 and 10 p.m. is when most of the money comes in. This past year though, the morning was super active. I was very, very happy about that.
Well, as you're looking at your question list, and it sounds like you also had the chat pulled up. I was just going to say, if anyone who is listening has a question for me, I'll be thrilled to try to answer anything from any listeners, or we can go back to your list too.
Yeah, if anybody in the chat has a question they'd like to ask, just a reminder, Dr. Lunsford here is a rehabilitation doctor with Duke Children, specializes in pediatric care. If there's anything you'd like to know about either the Children's Miracle Network and like or Duke Children's itself, or about rehabilitation therapy or rehabilitation medicine, feel free to fire off, and I can read that question off for him.
Or my gaming nerddom and how good or bad I am at some game, but you name it, and I will at least have an opinion on it. I was telling David that right now I'm most proud of my Beat Saber development, working on Expert Plus level unlocks of Beat Saber. Yeah.
I played a whole lot of Beat Saber when it first came out, even before Expert Plus was a thing. All right, I got the first one. Let's fire it off.
Okay.
All right, question from Yukon Hero. Let's start light. What's your favorite game?
So, I mean, any gamer will say that's not a fair question to have one favorite game, and but I will say, like, games that define us, sort of thing. So, I am old enough to have wanted an Atari, but we didn't get it that Christmas. But then we did get a original NES the next Christmas, sort of thing. And so the Mario definitely defined me. Sort of like played it so much that I felt like I knew every single level. Had before the days of being kind of like speed playthroughs, we were still doing speed playthroughs.
Right.
And then I would say gamed a whole lot with the kind of through high school, but then didn't do a ton in college and even med school as kind of like the average person, sort of thing. Like, I played GameCube and played a little bit of PlayStation games in college, and had an Xbox that sat there. But I came back to gaming in such a big way with Halo Reach. And
Gotcha.
so I'll say Halo Reach, Mario, and Halo Reach just as the two answers. And I just felt like Halo Reach kind of put it all together for me of getting that multiplayer immersion, still also having an awesome campaign, and first-person shooter and side scroller. I would say those are I love them all, but really do love those two game types for sure.
Nice. All right. Next one I got here is coming from our friend Ashley. Ashley would like to know what's a big memorable moment from working on the job.
Oh, well, I mean, I have a ton, but the one that comes to mind just because of the sweetness of the relationship, and also the moral of the story is not judging a book by its cover, which I think of myself as really good at, is that it was really bittersweet to move from UVA to Duke. I've already kind of told you why, which is that I don't get rid of my patients, and so for me to leave my practice and have a lot of them, I have to say, I'm not going to be a rehab doctor necessarily because I'm moving, was super hard. But one patient in particular was a 12-year-old boy with such complex cerebral palsy that he couldn't walk, couldn't talk. We knew that he was a smart kid, but he was also very stubborn in that even some of the ways that he could have chose to express himself, he did not want to do that. That was his choice. So like you think of like Stephen Hawking using his computer to talk, this child was smart enough to do that, but was just like, he always was unhappy. He hated the medical system so much. He hated every time he had to be in a hospital because of just like cumulative trauma of being in hospital. And then I, on top of it, had to do Botox work, which we've already talked about is not fun. And so I thought that like every time I saw him, he would scrunch up his face and he would be knowing Botox was coming, and that all the times that we talk about other things, he would just zone out sort of thing. But the day I had to say I was leaving, I thought, he's going to be happy. He'll still get his Botox from one of the ortho guys at the doctor there, and one less. Don't have to see me again because I'm the guy who would be causing him pain, and he doesn't like nothing to do with medicine. But that day, when we said our goodbyes, he reached out for a hug goodbye. And it was shocking to me because I didn't know that he could move his arms well enough to reach out for a hug, let alone that he would want to. I would have really thought that would be like not the thing that I would not have gone in to hug him had he not reached out. But it was, again, me kind of making a lot of assumptions about, he didn't like what we had to do, but he appreciated that we did it, and that he appreciated that there was something net positive about our interactions. And I felt like I learned again in a new way not to make assumptions and judge what people may or may not think just from even though he had the disabilities that made it hard to communicate. So that's been a story that I love getting to tell.
Nice. That is a sweet one, because like we've been talking a lot about the need for like empathy and like understanding the human condition a lot for providing healthcare. And to even know that even if you're working with someone frequently, that there's still something that you might miss, I think just goes to show like how complex people are. And I think that's really nice. I do like that one a lot. I want to touch on
the layers of feelings. I feel like that's like you can have a real dislike of certain things, but then the personal side shining through for me was just really helpful to know that it's not always every time I saw him, it wasn't that he would hated every bit of it, you know.
Like he understood, and you know, it made it like feel like you were less of a like. There's one thing which is like the appreciation, I'm sure. Like,
yeah,
you know, there's always a benefit of being able to say like knowing that you've done something positive for somebody, but also to like kind of take away, you know, some of the concerns that you were just causing them, you know, pain and stuff, or like pain and, you know, discomfort the whole time. Yeah.
Well, that paternalistic feeling of like, you know, we're having to do this for you, even though you don't want it, or you don't understand why you need this. It's sort of like, wait a second, you know. All the times that we talked about it, he was understanding. He still just didn't feel the need to smile ever.
Right.
And you can't. That's not his fault. He doesn't need to. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's. I also. That's one reason why I want to retire from Duke. I don't ever want to have to tell a bunch of families that I'm having to move. They can move, but I want to stay put, because that was hard, saying goodbye to people that you kind of invest that time in. And but yeah. Were there other questions from the crowd?
I don't have any more questions coming from chat. But I do have a comment coming from my old roommate, Ian. He says he used to work at a summer's camp for children with disabilities called Victory Junction. It was an excellent experience getting to work with children with special needs, and really opened my eyes to the whole world I knew nothing about. How did you get started, and what was your first motivation for choosing this field? So we got kind of back to some of the first questions, but go ahead and touch back in on them, because I don't think Ian was here earlier.
Yeah, and I don't remember if you and I talked about this, but Ian, like, you and I have something in common. I was a camp counselor for Victory Junction as well, and I did it their very first summer in existence, which was 2004. If you're college roommates, I'm guessing that puts us separated by more than a few years. But yeah. Well, does Ian say what year he did it?
So Ian. So we graduated in early 2018. I believe Ian did the Victory Junction for 2 years afterwards. So that would have been 2018 and 2019. Yep.
So I did it their very first summer, and I would say the way you described it, though, Ian, is something similar to what I experienced, which was saying to myself, because I actually took on the job to go on my pre-med resume. It was meant to sort of say, oh, you know, this is me showing that I kind of want to look at the big picture and be holistic, but I would have never guessed how much it opened up my mind to understanding that whole world. And one of the ways that I found pediatric rehab medicine was I always was wondering through med school, asking myself, so who is the doctor that would treat the kids that I was the camp counselor for? And there is no one doctor that would fit all the kids that might go to Victory Junction. But if there is one field that encapsulates sort of what it means to want to be a doctor for someone while also kind of really celebrating who they are as a person with or without their disability, sort of thing, like respecting the impact of the disability on a person's life while still also trying to treat it. That's what Victory Junction did for me. So I love hearing, Ian, that you and I have that in common. Camp is a sort of a whole vibe. You don't know it unless you kind of get to somewhere like Victory Junction for a week, how amazing it is.
Yeah. I know it's from. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times before. After he did so.
Yeah.
Is that you who just crashed into me, or is that somebody else? Oh no, I got clotheslined by another chopper. Sorry, I thought I knew you were around on one.
Me.
No, the other one exploded too.
I'm still on mine, but it's about to explode.
Yeah. That's really cool to know, though, that I don't know a whole lot about Victory Junction outside of what I've spoken with Ian about from his time volunteering there. So it's really cool to know that. So 2004 was their first year, you said?
Yep, the very first year was 2004, and the camp, when it was made, they put it together pretty quickly, but the camp was like, the facilities weren't even done. So as a camp counselor, my orientation was learning how to be a camp counselor, and then also putting together beds and laying down sod. Like, that's how I feel like I helped put my little touch on Victory Junction because of being there that first summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's real nice. So I'm going to touch on just a few more of the questions that I have, but these ones are more directly related to Extra Life and the Children's Miracle Network. Just to get some more information out there for anybody who might be watching.
Sure.
And
considering donating, like maybe here, this will push you over the edge of considering donating.
Yep. So since its inception in 2008, Extra Life has raised over $100 million for children's hospitals across the United States and Canada. As a provider, what is the impact of these efforts?
So, I don't know if it stuck out in an earlier conversation, but I mentioned how the ways in which medicine is broken, and the ways in which healthcare, as a general rule, has issues that I think we all know affects somebody somewhere, even if it doesn't affect you. We have millions of people who are uninsured. But even more than the obvious are sometimes that, what if the one thing preventing a family from coming to Duke to get assessed is transportation and then a place to stay when they get here for a condition that we only treat here at Duke? And that's where the Miracle Life dollar might come in. Or what if there is one grant that didn't get funded on the last cycle and would have to wait another year before getting sort of some pilot data on, but now we can do that extra study because of a Miracle Life dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, your donations, they can sometimes make the difference in what might be a logistical thing for us, and we don't know what we're going to find until we do it because we haven't done that research yet. But then next thing you know, we're able to offer a treatment a whole year earlier than we might have been able to offer because we didn't have to wait on another year of research funding cycle money to unlock or something. So whether it's helping someone, get transportation across the country for a treatment, again, with some of our stem cell treatments, we're first in the country, if not still one of the only that we're leaders in, or whether it is kind of expanding and amplifying that outreach through research, your dollar can go to a lot of great, exciting places.
Nice. Yeah, it's really interesting to see, and I'm sure it's probably hospitals across the board, but they have a really nice graphic that they show for us who do Extra Life about how each dollar is used. It's about 25% is patient care, 25% is research. There is a portion of that goes to enrichment programs within the hospitals and all that. It's cool to just know how we're making an impact instead of just hoping that it's going to where we want it to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Children's Miracle Network as a whole is such a great place to put a donation dollar if you have it. But then when you have the added benefit of knowing a local hospital or one that you have a connection with, if we here at Duke could be that one, to me it sort of amplifies again your knowledge that not a nebulous go into the void donation. It's
right.
gonna have an impact and gonna have an impact on somebody's life sooner than you might think.
Yeah.
That graphic that you're talking about, I actually pulled it up too before we started, and the thing that again sticks out to me is a reminder of what great colleagues I work with here at Duke in terms of some of the things that they're doing that are groundbreaking clinical treatments and research. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's nice. I'm very happy, and you know, as I've mentioned, this is my 11th year playing in support of Duke Children's. I grew up in the Raleigh area in Apex, so I'm like kind of familiar. I don't know if I was ever specifically a Duke Children's patient, but I've been in and out of that hospital area as I've talked about. You know, my multiple things as a child. But what are some of the areas?
When you texted me from the 919 number, I was like, "Oh, yep, I remember now. That's from the area."
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut you off on.
Oh no, you're good. So the only other thing I want related to that though was what are some of the areas that Duke Children specializes in that you would like to highlight? Maybe something that we haven't covered, or you know, you've talked a lot about your working between your colleagues and all that with plans and care. Is there anything else that you think that from your work in the field that Duke Children has over some of the other hospitals that if people are seeking care might want to consider?
Yeah, I do, but I also wouldn't want to respect, because what I'm about to say is for cerebral palsy, and there's a lot of research on cord blood treatment to try to minimize the motor impact of cerebral palsy. And you know, maybe someday even cure, but cure again is, I think we're a long way off from. But minimizing, what we mean by that is, what if once we have a strong suspicion that someone is likely to have cerebral palsy, even by 2-3 months of age, could we then give them cord blood treatments that would put them on a whole different trajectory of where they might have always needed a wheelchair to then be able to walk with just a little bit of help from therapy and a brace or a walker or something. And those sort of treatments, those cord blood treatments, they've been around for a while, but Duke is one of the only places in the U.S. that's really trying to push the envelope on figuring out if they're helpful for cerebral palsy or not, because they are helpful for other conditions that we know, but cerebral palsy has been sort of one that, because there's so many different reasons that you can have CP, it's a heterogeneous group that it's been hard to have those sort of treatments that are not just sort of maximizing where you are on a functional level, but improving your whole trajectory of what functional levels are even possible on sort of a functional ceiling. And so I think that's the one that I highlight, because that's part of the reason I came to Duke, is to work with the group that does these cord blood interventions or stem cell treatments that previously, you know, have been wondering whether or not you would have to have your own cord blood saved, and we're working on ones that are not only ethically obtained but donated in a way that then you don't have to have your own cord blood to benefit from the treatments if they are helpful.
Gotcha.
So for us, that's the one that really sticks out. But I say that with also a measure of, would anyone ever hear this and feel like there's no way they could ever get to Duke, and there's a treatment out there that they can't get? You know, we're still doing the research to first of all prove that whether or not this even helps.
Well, I mean,
So,
but
you
I
know,
mean, hearing about unique technologies like that, like I had so I have keratoconus. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah, so I had a corneal cross-linking done at Duke back the Duke Eye Center back in 2017. When corneal cross-linkings were still not covered by insurance or anything like that, and even then, I worked with a doctor there for getting a scleral lens when scleral lenses were also pretty hard to come by to find specialists for. It's always like outside of just Duke Children's itself, but the hospital or the organization of Duke as a whole has always had a lot of focus on really niche medical topics that have been very beneficial to me and to others, you know?
Yep.
And just knowing
And
that
I
they
think
exist.
I think that's what's important, is that, yeah, there are a lot of rare conditions out there, but there are a lot, when you take all those rare conditions together, millions and millions of people whose lives are affected and who need people to advocate for them and people to be asking the research questions that are going to help them. And I think that's something that we at a place like Duke, and there are many other places that are also doing great jobs, but we really try to push that envelope because otherwise, those voices don't get the advocacy that they deserve to try to find the next thing that is going to be helpful. So I love that you have that personal example with your keratosis.
Yeah, it's something. I would like to say thank you to the $25 donation that Samuel Gary has just put through, to which his donation message has also said, "Give me 5 dice rolls." So while you hit this game up real quick, I'm gonna grab my trusty D20 and and throw some rolls down while I also try not to die. And the dice went straight off the table. All right. First one's a 14.
Oh yeah, what is it?
14 is that I must doodle the donator. My wife gave me a pad of paper somewhere. I think I see it across the room. All right, I'm gonna get all these rolls out real quick, and I'm gonna do these real quick. 13 is I get to roll again, and my wife does it. Hey, it doesn't matter because we're adding 5 more minutes to the stream. So, because I rolled a 19, so no actual punishment for her. That's a 20, which means that I will be taking a shot of alcohol after this is over. And 13 again, which means I roll again, and the result goes to Allie. And that's a 12, which means that Allie, once we start the next session here, we'll have to wear oven mitts for 5 minutes. So let's see. That was Doodle.
If I had to do that with Halo, it might actually improve my play.
Yeah. So let me make sure I got them all. I got to doodle you, Sam. I got to... I had 5 minutes to the stream. I'm going to take a drink.
And do it all together at the same time.
Allie's got to wear oven mitts.
And a penny for John to eat pizza.
And... Oh. My father-in-law's shown up.
Uh-oh.
How was that? That's good. It's all over. He just shoved a pie in my face.
Right? Oh, yeah. There you go.
I got paper towel right here. All right. 13 again.
Prevent you from dying.
So this is the third. So this is the last one for Sam. It's a 13. It's a 12. Allie, that's 10 minutes of oven mitts for you. All right, and then for the $1 or for the 1 dice roll for Christina, that's a 4. I got to do a haiku.
Ah.
You get to do those when it comes to our game when you're on stream. Chaos. All right, real quick.
Are y'all done?
Oh, I just cleaned up. Okay.
I know. That's what I waited for.
Okay.
You ready?
You could do it. You could do it. You're good.
Oh, she's enjoying that.
Yeah, she is.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah, she enjoyed that.
Thank you, Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. You might need a new shirt.
No, I can't. This is the stream shirt.
I like the stream shirt.
I know. All right.
No, don't take this. Let him take these.
How you doing, Dr. Lunsford?
Oh, we're hanging in there. I'm keeping you alive.
Yeah, you are. It's.
Here are these.
Thank you.
Out of your eye?
I'll get into just a second here.
Okay. Here you go.
I'll just switch it back over here.
I just don't want it in your eyes.
Oh, all right. I have a haiku I need to perform, but I also need to doodle somebody, and I've got to. All right.
And we can wrap up the firefight when you're ready. I did have to. Did you already take your shot?
I have not done that. I'm gonna do all that real in like a quick succession here. All right, Christina. Let's think of something real quick. All right. Whipped cream whipped cream to the face, speaking with Dr. Lunsford, playing some Halo. There you go. That's a haiku. Nailed it. That's a 575 if I've ever heard it. Bam, and topical.
Boom.
I'm still trying to clean myself up while I'm doing this.
So you owe them a wax as well?
I owe them. Oh yeah, I do. I'll get to that in a second. Let me 1 second here.
$20 dance and a die roll.
That's right.
All right. See, it goes from very structured conversation to chaos all real quick. It's all good that this is happening at the end.
Well, 5 D20 roll. I think I like the chaos. I think you get 3 of those rolls to make you take a shot, and this party's gonna get started. I tell you that.
Well, I'll have you know that one of the rolls is if I roll a 7, I roll again and do it twice. And at
Ooh.
at 11 this morning, I rolled a 7 and then I rolled a 20. So
Nice.
it has already happened, and I thought that's not gonna happen. There's no way it happens. This is also the 3rd time we've rolled a 20. So
Nice.
I just figured it would be over such a long period of time that it wouldn't really be noticeable. But I'm going to throw the camera over here real quick. Thank you very much. There's another donation that just came in. I'm going to have to look real fast. What is that donation? $25 from Samuel. Again? Look at me. Look at me on camera. I am a mess right now. Sam just rolled it. Yeah.
No mercy.
All right.
Oh, you have to draw a sketch too.
I do.
So he's still going through some of his other.
Sam, I'm gonna get this doodle in real quick, and then I'm gonna say goodbye to Dr. Lunsford as we finish out our conversation, and then we can do the rest of this. Ah! Oh my goodness. I am not an artist at all, but you know, we're gonna call this a real quick doodle. What is art but drawing small shapes? I'm not gonna.
Art is in the eye of the beholder.
Yep. All right, Sam. There's a lovely drawing of you that I made real quick with you wearing your Donkey Muscle t-shirt. All right. I have to go do a wax strip. I have to roll 5 more times, and
Yeah, that was a good end of the stream donation. That was a good transition here.
Oh, we are $4 away.
End of my part of the stream.
$4.
Sorry.
yeah. All right. Dr. Lunsford,
All right.
I
ready to
appreciate
wrap
you.
up?
No, yeah, I greatly appreciate. Can you step over that way because it's messing with the light just slightly. All right, I greatly appreciate you joining us and having this conversation. It's been super informative and a great opportunity. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we part ways? I continue doing this for another 16 hours.
Yeah, man. No, the appreciation is mutual. I feel like what you're doing is really important, and it's nice to kind of get a chance to come in and talk as a gamer, talk as a doc, talk as a supporter of your efforts and your 11th year. And all in all, I wish you like nothing but the best, and hope that I can come back next year, and I will join the D20 role somehow during the time that I'm on or something.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
All right, my man.
All right.
Again.
Yep. One more thing before we head out and we go to commercial break. Dr. Lunsford and I spoke beforehand, and there's one thing he wanted to talk a little bit more outside of his work within medicine as a provider. He has a goal to try and make medicine more accessible, especially for those with different needs. Has a focus on the idea of being anti-ableist or able-bodied for how we approach healthcare. He had an article featured within Duke's website recently that speaks more on the topic and on the advocacy that he's doing. So I'm linking that now in the chat. Anybody who'd like to take a look at it, read a little bit more, feel free to check it out. But I think that's about all we have here. Again.
Yeah, thanks again. I was gonna have you just put that on there somewhere, but I really appreciate the shout out about it as well. But yeah, the article has more information. But in the end, I just really appreciate the chance to come on here and let these firefight grunts destroy me in nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and throw the stream over to a little bit of a break so I can clean up my face and get ready to roll 5 more times, do a wax strip, and get ready for the next game with my wife.
All right.
No, I did the die roll for RNGesus, Kyle. I did that forever ago. It was something like really simple. I'll have to go back and look, but I definitely did it. I promise you. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to throw it over. We'll be back here in probably like 5 to 10 minutes because there's a little bit I got to switch around.